Yes, zero build is just better than Battle Royale build mode, and I'll give you 12 reasons why. Let's just start with the elephant in the room. Build mode is essentially what made Fortnite what it is today. No one thinks about zero build first when we think about the game. I'll give you that. But you also need to realize that build mode comes with a lot of frustrating aspects that zero build actually can solve. The first reason is that the learning curve is much smaller in zero build. Just think about all of the keybinds and settings you need to get used to in build mode. It's definitely intimidating when you think about it. Not only do you need to move, aim, shoot, and survive, but you also need to build, edit, farm materials, etc. For those playing on keyboard and mouse, it's fair to say that you'll need to use all of your 10 fingers and a lot of practice to get better over time. Also, many players just don't have the time or even the motivation to practice building and editing in creative box fights. I know for a fact I'm not the only one if I say I just want to hop on Fortnite, get in a game quickly, and enjoy it right away. Build mode has a tendency to force you to get better with time. For example, when playing ranked build mode, it's much easier to hit a plateau and be stuck there for a long time, unless you actually practice some skills in creative, which is very time consuming. This brings us to the second reason, which is zero build is perfect for new players, not build mode. Imagine you don't know how to use a bicycle at all and you gotta choose between a smaller 4-wheel bicycle or a normal 2-wheel one. I guess you would start with the easiest option, right? With the same logic, if you were a brand new Fortnite player and you see the game menu offering you to play one of the two modes, what would you pick? I'm expecting the vast majority of players to choose zero build, since it's much simpler and you don't have to worry at all about building anything. I'm convinced that if you come from Warzone, Apex Legends, or any other Battle Royale shooter, you have all the reasons to pick zero build first as a new Fortnite player. The third reason might be the most controversial one, but I truly believe zero build's main focus is actual gunfights between players, while it's not necessarily the case with build mode. When I play a Battle Royale shooter game, I expect to use weapons, aim, shoot, and be challenged with my gun skills, nothing else. We could argue that build mode heavily makes you focus on building and editing, and many of the best players are so good at this that it diminishes the importance of their gun skills. The number of times I got completely outplayed by someone in build mode just because of their building skills is huge. In comparison, the number of times I got the sense that I got outskilled by anyone in zero build is minimal. This is exactly why my fourth reason is the skill gap isn't too dramatic in zero build. Indeed, the difference between the absolute worst player in build mode compared to a top tier FNCS pro is insanely big. Just watch a FNCS competition and try to compare yourself to the pros playing. How skilled are you compared to them? On the other hand, when you watch pros play zero build, it feels more relatable and we're not too far from actually executing what they do. Also, it can be demoralizing to try to get better in build mode when sometimes you are faced versus a player that completely exceeds your building mechanics. That type of scenario is actually only applicable in build mode. While playing zero build, you don't typically notice real dominant players as anyone in the lobby has a decent chance to win. Logically, the fifth reason is tied to what we discussed previously, and it is that zero build relies on your aiming skills much more. In build mode, think about the number of times you tried to snipe or attempted a long-range fight with your AR only to be completely shut down by the enemy who just placed some builds. In comparison, with zero build, you're much more likely to get kills with your sniper, AR, shotgun, or any other type of weapon. Your aiming skills are usually the determining factor in the outcome of a fight. You either get the kill because you shot first, landed more shots, and missed fewer shots than your opponent. That sounds really simple, but can we say the same thing when it's in build mode? Not really. You can do all the previous things as well, but the building aspect can put a wrench to your awesome aim skills if the opponent is really skilled at blocking or evading. Also, building can completely disrupt your flow and timing of your shots. This can become frustrating at times for sure. I definitely prefer to know I won a battle because I was better at aiming, instead of winning one in build mode that could have gone in any direction. This will also explain the next reason, which is that fights feel more fair in zero build. The flow, intensity, and pacing of fights in zero build are more predictable in general. You can almost know for sure when you're about to die or if you're gonna win the fight right before it ends. In reality, you can pinpoint exactly the reasons why you died or survived during fights, while in build mode it's not always that apparent. A really great player can box you in a heartbeat or make such fast edits you can't even keep up with. It's not unusual to feel helpless in some build battles, and this feeling doesn't really happen in zero build in my opinion. Let's also point out the fact that the 50 overshield in zero build makes a huge difference in the time to kill. Sometimes you can have the feeling you died so fast in build mode without being able to defend yourself or counter-attack. Let's be honest, have you noticed almost all of the fights in build mode end up in a box fight? To me, this defeats the purpose of a real engaging battle, as the key of the game is being up close and personal. In chapter 1, the meta wasn't like this, but gradually over time, as the player base got better and practiced more, the box fight meta emerged slowly. In zero build, you don't have this feeling of being only a close range meta. You get kills with snipers, your AR, your shotgun, basically every gun you carry. The experience is more diverse and more satisfying to fight in a zero build format. I'm convinced I'm not the only one who doesn't have time or just isn't motivated enough to practice practice box fighting in creative, just to get better at it in build mode. Am I right? Also, about build fights, did you notice that sometimes they never seem to end? So the 8th reason would be that zero build fights don't last as long. Given the choice, I would prefer to be eliminated quickly in zero build, knowing I made a crucial error, rather than starting a build fight with an initial advantage only to be outskilled by an opponent with much better building mechanics. With that being said, do you remember when the endgames were so nerve-wracking back in chapter 1? I think we've lost that heart-pumping feeling over the years in build mode. To add on to this, I think the endgames on zero build are more stressful because you need to actually have a real solid plan to win games. That's the 9th reason. Zero build involves more strategizing. It's hard not to recognize that rotations deserve much more attention and thinking in zero build compared to build mode. Having high ground has much more impact in zero build because if you are at the bottom, you won't always see where your opponent is above you. This puts a lot of emphasis on your positioning and where you should be at any given moment on a map. Your decision making is much more tested in a zero build game in my opinion. Playing smartly doesn't necessarily translate well to a build game. Don't get me wrong, for build mode, I think pros competing at FNCS level do have to strategize a lot, especially in the end game. But for the vast majority of the player base, we don't need it very much. If there's one reason my community definitely agrees on, is that ping doesn't matter as much in zero build. I personally think that ping wasn't that much talked about in the early chapters. But as the years came by, the complaints of a ton of players highlighted the big disadvantage of having high ping when you face off against another player with a better ping in build mode. With the meta being focused on piece control a lot more these days, it's hard not to mention that ping does indeed offer a significant advantage to players who can replace walls first and then do an edit to deliver the final blow on you. To add more on this matter, many streamers and pro players in North America are not even trying to compete in FNCS or tournaments simply because their ping is nowhere close to zero. And in case you didn't know, some of them also move into cities known for having the lowest of pings just to compete and have a fair chance of being successful. I'm not sure what other argument I need to add here because it's pretty obvious that pings does matter so much in build mode. As for zero build, not only do we never hear players mentioning ping being a significant factor in battles, but we also realize that a difference of 50 milliseconds between two players doesn't typically favor anyone in a fight. What really matters in zero build is to be the first one to put down the opponent at 0 HP. And this is not affected by ping. The only occasions ping could have a small impact is when you trade with the enemy, or when both players die at the exact same time. Let's be honest, these don't happen very often anyway. Now, if there's one reason that is not talked about too much is the fact controller players do have a better fighting chance in zero build. It's very hard to disagree with the idea that players using keyboard and mouse in build mode have a clear advantage over controller players when it comes to building and editing. It's much easier to be precise with a mouse while using all of your arm and hand versus someone using his thumbs on a controller. In fact, I would dare you to try fighting in close range shotgun battles with a controller and compare it when you use a keyboard and mouse. Tracking the target, using flicks, and precision definitely are easier compared to the controller, where the speed at which to move the cursor is less flexible because it relates solely to your sensitivity settings. I know some of you might say, well, Miro won FNCS and he's a controller player. I mean, of course, there are always exceptions to the rule in life, and this is the same here. When you look at the pro scene, how many successful players are playing with a controller? I don't know what percentage it is in reality, but I would be insanely surprised if 25% of them are using controllers. Also, I'm sure there will be someone in the comments saying, oh my god, but what about aim assist? You guys on the controller have the edge. Aim assist is certainly an advantage for controller players, but it is nowhere as helpful as being able to use the full capacity of your fingers, wrist, and arm with keyboard and mouse, especially when it comes to building and editing. Another very underrated reason no one mentions is that movement is more important to master in zero build. One thing can really separate you from being great versus good in zero build, and it's how you move on the battlefield. It's important to aim and get kills, of course, but it might be as important to save your life and become a tough target to hit. To do so, being on the move and very mobile is the best method out there, and this is why using mobility items like the grapple blade or shockwaves is crucial in zero build. I'm not saying that these items are useless in build mode, but they are less needed, especially during build battles. The ability to slide, jump, juke, and create combos of these moves is pretty important in zero build when you get better at the game over time. The last thing you want to do is to be a sitting duck or to be an easy target to eliminate. If there are creative maps out there that allow you to practice your building, editing, and piece control skills, why not also practice movement with mobility items in zero build creative maps? I think these are not too common as we speak now in chapter 5 season 1, but I got a feeling it will become mainstream in the upcoming years. If you made it this far in the video, that automatically means that you will enjoy watching this next video on screen, because not only does it have the same format, but it also gives you 20 zero build tips that will improve your gameplay. See you over there.